everyday language, photographs are referred to as pictures which are looked at. But unlike this impression, photographs are constantly handled, labeled, cut down, framed, and glued onto cardboard supports or into albums, printed and dispatched in envelopes erased from smartphones or posted online. They are exchanged, discarded, and from time to time torn to pieces. Photographs are also material, three-dimensional objects themselves. In 19th century, archaeologists, anthropologists, and ethnologists, along with art historians, began working with photographs and collecting them in archives. Here, they formed the basis for techniques and methods of scholarly work. The use of photographs in disciplinary practices was very much tied to them being mobile and three-dimensional objects. These were the premises of the collaborative project Photo Objects, photographs as research objects in archaeology, ethnology, and art history, where my colleagues Julia Bernikhausen, Costanza Carafa, Franka Schneider, Petra Wodke, and I examined 4 archives dating from roughly 1850 to 1945. The photographic collection of applied arts at the Photothek of the Kunsthistorische Institut in Florence, the archiving of monuments in architectural photographs from the US and Europe around 1900 at the Kunstbibliothek's photography collection, archaeological excavations in Asia Minor and their photographic documentation in the Antikensammlung, both part of Staatliche Museen zu Berlin, and ethnographic photographs of the Hane-Niehoff archive at the Institute of European Ethnology, which is part of Humboldt University, Berlin. In this talk, I will exemplify a few facets of photo archival practice and its relation to knowledge production, which had proved to be especially illuminating during our research. Archives are part of disciplinary formations, which in turn also affect how knowledge is structured. In them, storage furniture like shelves and boxes, classification systems, but also archivists and researchers interact and are intermingled with each other and with specific archival and scholarly practices. Photo archives therefore need to be appreciated as dynamic, ever-changing ecosystems, as Elizabeth Edwards and Costanza Carafa have coined it. None of the archives presented in this paper constitutes a stable entity. They are all historically situated, as are the people working in archives, as are us. Which means as well that archives are subject to various transformations over time. The same holds true for photographs. They are circulating, accumulating traces of use and layers of meaning. It is these layers of sedimented knowledge that attracted our attention. First, browsing an archive. In the archives, we encounter photo objects in different formats that invite us to handle them in very particular ways. They facilitate or afford different forms of use. The mounted photograph is one very common of such knowledge formats in our photo archives. In systematic image collections like that of the Photothek at the Kunsthistorisches Institut in Florence, which my colleague Julia Bernikhausen had analyzed, and the Kunstbibliothek's photography collection, both are strongly connected to the disciplinary emergence of art history, photographs were and still are mostly mounted on standardized pieces of cardboard. Their mounting facilitates an easy handling while protecting the photograph at the same time. Mounted photographs can allow to browse as a widespread form of practice in those archives. The English verb to browse implies a thoroughly planned, but at the same time open search. It is a mode of searching which allows for serendipity. It leaves room for chance, even calculates it in the search, although the recognition of a surprising find is well based on previous knowledge and requires a trained attention. This archival search practice is facilitated by the arrangement and physical properties of these archives. The photographs are mostly stored in boxes, as you see it here in the images, organized according to art historical genres and chronologies, on shelves or in folders. They often function as an OpenStack research tool, depending on the archive's assignments and on its admission policies. Users can or could approach these shelves, pull out boxes, open them, and leaf through the photographs. Inside the boxes, there was a distinct flexibility and variability, allowing to be adapted to the various needs of the researcher. A single photograph can usually only be found if many boxes and photo objects are searched through. Therefore, large tables are very often essential furniture in order to distribute and juxtapose photographs in any ways. Browsing is provided structurally here by the virtue of order, enhancing thereby the possibility of serendipity. This form of handling proved especially productive, for instance, when teaching was involved. The photo archive, which forms the basis of the collection of photography at the Kunstbibliothek Art Library today, was originally developed from the 1860s onwards as a teaching repository to supply models and examples for the educational institute belonging to the Museum of Decorative Arts in Berlin. It provided photographs and other media of decorative artworks and architecture to prospective artisans, architects, artists, and as of the end of the 19th century, also to art historians. It aimed to contribute to improve commercial and industrial production by conveying historical and contemporary styles, as well as techniques of production. Thematically ordered folders offered large series of representations of similar objects for comparison and inspiration. Hence, these folders were organized according to the photo object's intended exemplary function in production. For instance, in categories of individual building elements such as doors, chimneys, latticework, or stairs that practitioners could consult for specific tasks. Browsing was the intention, as was also stated by the library guide, therefore being institutionalized. Network of objects. Another widespread work practice becomes apparent if we look into the archive of the Antikensammlung, the collection of classical antiquities in Berlin, which accommodates, amongst others, documents related to the excavations undertaken by the Berlin Museum in the 19th and early 20th century. Alongside diaries and drawings, it encompasses thousands of historical photographs. And here it's where the working photographs Kelly Wilder spoke about yesterday become, I think, most apparent. The one here, which my colleague Petra Wodke had analyzed, stems from the excavation at Magnesia on the Meander River in what is today Western Turkey. The site was excavated between 1891 and 1894 by the German archaeologists and excavators headed by Karl Humann, who also took many of the photographs of the excavation. The mounted album print, which shows a fragment of the frieze of the Temple of Artemis in Magnesia, taken directly at the excavation site, reveals how many systems of denomination, numbering, referencing, assignment, and order can exist in archives. It's full of annotations and other traces of processing, and also at the reverse of the cardboard. They point to various steps which were necessary to interpret the excavation results. For the sake of time, I cannot explain all here, but give a few examples my colleague Petra Wodke has investigated. You can see a complex set of annotations on the mounted photograph, which refers to different layers of time too. First of all, notes on the reverse of the cardboard give information on the discovery of the find and the first numbering of the frieze panels, written down soon after the excavation in 1891. On the front of the photo objects, there are various numberings referring to different revisions of the fragment, since different publications on the frieze used various numbering systems. So numbers beneath the photograph count the single figures of the frieze. You see them here or here. A note, a big blue 2 refers to the counting of all the fragments of the frieze found by the excavators. A note in ink in the left bottom points to the actual negative of the print, or here, and to the publication of the excavation results in 1904. The writing was done much later in the 1930s. Other traces of working processes are indicated in red, since the frieze was published with drawings which were based on the tracings of the photographs. So you see the note here on the side. of the cardboard reading trace the part marked red. And other indicators of this work are also the small holes you see here, made by pins used to fix the tracing paper. Oops, sorry. Yeah. The fragment of the frieze marked with a red line here or here was brought to Constantinople. The other ended up in Berlin and is now in the Pergamon Museum. For researching the frieze, the photographs were used extensively to re-establish its ancient order by positioning the individual frieze panels with the help of the numberings. They hence helped reconstructing the frieze, at least on paper. This photo object with its sophisticated notation system demonstrates that individual photographs were always embedded in multifaceted and complex networks. Networks that consist not only of human actors, but also of archaeological fragments, notes, negatives, other prints, drawings, and various diaries, lists, and publications. And also a lot of notebooks with photographs. And you see one here, actually. Only through the interplay, knowledge about the archaeological site can be generated and the past subsequently and genuinely be understood. How intensively these photo objects were processed and linked with other media, we displayed in our exhibition, Unboxing Photographs Working in the Photo Archive, on show in Berlin in 2018. In a diagrammatic mind map that spatialized the assemblage of negatives, positives, excavation diaries, drawings, and publications, and illuminated their relationships. It spelled out again that photography does not produce historical sense and meaning as a singular image, but only in combination with other media and objects. Reworking an archive. Transformations go on with archives and photographs alike, which can include a history of dispersion and reassembly in other archival contexts. In this never-ending transformation, photo objects are put into new reference systems and arrangements, which locate their meanings in new contexts. Socio-political transformations are at the core of what happened to the Hahn-Niehoff archive at the Institute for European Ethnology at Humboldt University Berlin, which my colleague Franka Schneider had extensively researched. Oh, sorry, that was too quick. The Hahn-Niehoff archive, consisting of negative films and photographs glued on record sheets, unlike the other archives, is named after Hans Hahne, the former director of the Museum für Vorgeschichte, Museum of Prehistory in Halle, and the photographer Heinz Julius Niehoff. From the 1920s until the 1940s, they photographed traditional costumes, festivals, and architecture in the former province of Saxony. These photographs were intended to document the reputed, uninterrupted racial and cultural continuity of a Nordic Germanic people in central Germany, thereby pursuing a very clear racist and nationalist agenda. Here you see one of those record sheets. Various assessments of the photographs are part of their subsequent incorporation into different collection contexts. This is a major characteristic of the Hahn-Niehoff archive, as the research of my colleague Franka Schneider had revealed. One of the main transformations resulted from the end of the Nazi regime and the reordering of the institutional landscape in the DDR in the 1950s. As a result, the entire ethnographic collection of the museum in Halle moved to East Berlin. Some of its contents were handed to the DDR Academy of Science in 1956, where the record sheets were reused by members of the Academy. Some of the photographs were cut and repasted into a card catalogue of ethnographic research on regional customs, traditions, and community in East Germany, as for instance, images that showed a so-called Festival of the Ox in the central German village Rotha in 1933. Here, they were integrated in a section called Festivities Around Pentecost. In a new compilation, different photographs from this festival were grouped together according to their motives, ignoring partly the original sequences of the films as well as those of the festival. Instead, the index cards introduce a new order of comparison by the seriality of motifs and figures of the festival. The cards were merged with others resulting from research and collecting activities in East Germany in the late 1950s. They were all formatted in the same way, which elided their different contexts of origin. Even Hahn-Niehoff's descriptions on the record sheets were transferred. You can see one example here. Hence, the reuse of pictures with Nazi symbols like the swastika or the Hitler salute seems not to have posed a serious problem in the early days of the DDR. Rather, the Hahn-Niehoff photographs were easily integrated into research projects. They demonstrate a continuity of research with regard to local festivities between National Socialist and 1950s Volkskunde. In particular, when it comes to the gathering of knowledge and documenting with the help of photography. As the Hahn-Niehoff archive clearly demonstrates, photo archives are not neutral, and they are as dynamic entities subject to continuous transformations, collecting and processing, as well as dispersion or even destruction. The archives which we have looked at have been for a long time working collections, where photo objects would be reused and repurposed according to what seemed important in a given moment. They had a different status and function than museum collections, and it is only in recent decades that they changed status towards an increased historization and musealization. These and other results of our research were spatialized in the exhibition Unboxing Photographs Working in the Photo Archive. In this exhibition, we literally unboxed the cases of photographs from our archives and displayed their materiality connected to the daily work practices and the specific gestuality performed by archivists, and not least by us. This is only a very small clipping from our research. More is to be found in the two books resulting from our project, the conference volume Photo Objects on the Materiality of Photographs and Photo Archives in the Humanities and Sciences, which you can access online, and the final publication of our project that came out this summer. I hope I may take the liberty here to invite you all to our upcoming book launch on December 16th on 5 p.m., which we will have also on Zoom. And under the link here, you find the information on the event, and where we also will present the results of our project and explore it in more depth, together with some of the artists we work with and with other commentators. So thank you very much for your attention.